Tariq about sending the file. So yeah, so I'm going to provide a report on NEA Scout, and the reference at the bottom links to a page where you can find a lot of resources on the mission. NEA Scout is a project that is done between JPL and Marshall Space Center. Next, please. So NEA Scout is one of 13 CubeSats that will be launched with Artemis 1 in the fall of 2021. Currently, the launch is planned in November. It was selected in 2013, so it's a very long development for a CubeSat, which is directly linked to the shift in the launch date for Artemis 1. But it's been very helpful to have that extra time because most of what we fly on the CubeSat is a new technology. And so we finished integration and testing a few weeks ago, and we are going through acceptance reviews right now in order to deliver in July. The goal of NEA Scout is to characterize a near-Earth asteroid with just a simple camera, but of high quality in order to address strategic knowledge gaps and to demonstrate a low-cost reconnaissance capability for human exploration of the solar system. It leverages a number of previous projects, solar cell development by my co-PI Les Johnson, and also on the Planetary Society's Light Cell mission. We are leveraging the demonstration on the Mars CubeSat 1 platform, especially the IRIS radio. And there are commonalities with other payloads that are going to fly on Artemis 1. We have a bunch of constraints, as you can imagine. We have to fit within a 6U form factor, and we have a 10 by 10 square meter sail with an effective surface area of about 90 square meters. We are limited in the duration of the mission because a part of our components are off the shelf, and we are limited by telecom, but that's not a big deal actually. There are plenty of objects that are within reach. And with the solar sail, it's a very low thrust kind of propulsion, as you can imagine, and we can perform a slow flyby, and that is really exciting. Next, please. If you can go to the next, just so that I speed up. Thanks. So here are the key measurements. We're going to spend some time in the Earth-Moon system following deployment in order to calibrate the solar cell in particular. And so this is a new technology. I mean, solar cells have been deployed in the past, but we are going to navigate with the cell, so we need to understand its behavior. So we'll spend a few months in the Earth-Moon system, and then we'll have about 1 year of cruise. And then we will be working on our flyby about, less than 40,000 kilometers away. We will be able to do target detection and approach. And then starting about 100 kilometer distance, the target will be resolved, and we will map the surface at about better than 50 centimeters per pixel over 80% of the surface in order to get the shape, the volume, and the spin properties and the local environment. And then we have a very short, about a couple of minutes of close proximity science, during which we will perform high-res imaging at 10 centimeters per pixel at just one hemisphere, about 30% of the surface, and we will perform local morphology and regolith property assessment. But just with a simple imager, we can retire 80% of the SKGs that NASA would like to assess at human exploration targets. So, so that is an efficient approach. Next, please. Oh, next. Thanks. So we target NHATS, and we're leveraging a lot of the work that has been done in order to establish the NHATS database. Our targets, they are relatively small. And in fact, there is about one target available for any launch window. And this chart just shows how the targets are distributed in terms of eccentricity and semi-major axis. and then delta V accessibility. And our pool of potential target is very, very small. But thanks to the current generation of telescopes, which are very powerful, there is about 1 new accessible target found each year. So even if the launch of Artemis 1 has been delayed by 4 years, we've been able to have a target available for any launch window, basically. We've been working a lot with the Center for NEOs, which is great, and the astronomy community. And recently, we've been working with Davide Farnokia, Lance Benner, Marco Micheli, and Olivier Hainaut to follow up on our targets, which has proved very, very helpful. And our targets, they are very challenging. We're talking about objects that are between 5 and 15 meters in radius. Their orbits have to be understood, because we don't have the capability to mosaic the sky and do a very in-depth search activity. But so far, we've been lucky. And thanks to the community, we have a pool of targets we can design to. Next, please. So our baseline target is called 2020 GE. It's an Earth crossing. Unclear, it could be a lunar ejecta based on dynamical properties. It's between 4 and like 20 meters. And the encounter that we're looking at is in November 2024, after a very close flyby to Earth. Right now, we know its position within hundreds of kilometers, and during our flyby, the distance will be only 0.15 AU, which could maybe lead to the possibility that we don't use the high gain antenna and just the low gain antenna, at least for navigation, which would reduce a lot the complexity of the flyby, because when we point to Earth, we disrupt the pointing, the attitude of the solar sail, and that makes navigation of any Scout extremely complex, which is an issue with solar sails in general. And this chart just shows the mission duration, the full mission duration, as a function of the projected launch date for Artemis 1. So if we launch in like November 2021, the mission duration will be about 2.5 years. So we are within our limits. And we have a backup target, which is 2019 GF1. If for any reason we can't get to G, or later on, if we launch more in the spring of 2022, we have 2020 WY, and all of these are well characterized. Next, please. So that's just an overview of our flight system. I've shown this many times in the past. So just a summary. At the top, we have about 2 U's of avionics with the imager, the computer, everything that you can imagine for avionics. And then the rest of the flight system is about the propulsion. And so you have the solar cell, which is packed in about 2U, and we need to have a propellant on top of the solar cell, cold gas propellant for a desaturation. Next, please. And that just close-up of the avionics that JPL developed and delivered to Marshall Space Flight Center in 2019. And you can see the imager and star tracker and the team. Next, please. So our imager is iScience grade. That was really, really important. That's really important for this mission. It's about 400 grams, low power. It's a high field of view because we use it also for navigation. We can meet our best resolution requirement from less than 1,000 meters from the target, which we can achieve because we have a very low thrust mission. So we can really target where we want to go. The new thing is that it's a 20 megapixel detector. So it generates a lot of data. And that is going to be important for the future, where, I mean, many future cameras are going to have large detectors. And so that is pushing us to develop strategies to deal with the high data volume for a small CubeSat. And the performance that we need for meeting our objectives has been exceeded in all possible levels. So we are very happy about this product. Next, please. And that's just a picture. I know it doesn't look great. One big deal with the pandemic is that we've not been able to travel. And so instead of doing the last testing of the camera focus with a theodolite and in a very precise manner, we've been taking pictures in the lab. And because the focus distance is greater than 10 meters, that's the best we could achieve. It's been really a challenge for the Marshall team to do integration and testing during the pandemic, and it's really been a heroic effort, but it went all fine in the end. It just they've been working night and day, and so I'm very, very proud of the team. Next, please. And that's just a few slides about the sail deployment testing. Next, please. Some pictures, the sail that is packed, just what's inside the CubeSat, all integrated. Next. I'll go fast because I know I've taken too much time already. So technology pathfinders, so the solar sail, of course, and already my co-PI, Les Johnson, has won a solar cruiser mission, a heliophysics mission for SMD that is going to leverage all possible aspects of what we've been doing for NEA Scout. The camera, definitely, it's a very good product, and I know it's going to be used for future missions. We are doing an end-to-end demonstration of onboard image processing in order to extract data and prioritize the data we want to return to the ground, and that is going to have a lot of applications for future missions as well. And we introduced the Sphinx computer, which is a CubeSat footprint and has about the same capability as the RAD 750. Next, please. And that's just a summary of what we do in terms of onboard image processing in order to, we have a little bit of autonomy. Basically, that's an autonomy pathfinder. We are going to do data analysis on board, apply the full processing pipeline on board in order to recover the information we need. And we are done linking only 300 megabits of data. That's the best we can afford, but it will be carefully selected. Next, please. And I think I'm done. Yeah, so status, INT is complete. We are delivering in July. We're finishing the science data system at JPL in September. We launch at the end of the year. And that's about it. Next, please. Yeah, and that's it. We are on track and we're very excited about this project. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Julie. That was a very interesting presentation. We already have a question from Melissa Bruker. To what accuracy do the orbit coordinates of the selected asteroids need to be known before launch?
Yeah, that's a good question. Before launch, we have a requirement to know the target along track position 6 sigma within 20 kilometers. But if there is an opportunity to observe the target while we are just at the beginning of the cruise, we also include these targets inside our pool of potential targets. And it's been very nice to work with the NHATS database because it provides this kind of information of which target can be observed.
And a follow up on that. So likely an orbit condition code of 0, 1.
Yeah, 0, 1. Yeah, 2 if I mean, just because the orbital code translates into a position uncertainty in time, could be an orbit condition of 2 if it ends up being 27 kilometers by the time we get there.
Great, thanks. And then Nancy has a question. Is there an estimate of the end-to-end full mission cost just to inform future small sat missions to also succeed?
I'm not sure I can give the cost. I can tell you it's way more than was originally intended. And part of it is because of the delay. Part of it is because we realized that things we wanted to do, especially the solar sail, well, at low maturity when we started, and there have been a bunch of investments. The booms that we were intended to fly early on are changed over time because STMD invested in a new generation of boom that was more appropriate for us. So I have an idea of the cost. What I can tell you is that probably moving forward, we would not do CubeSat missions this way. I mean, it's clear that the commercial, the industry has been developing very efficient and low cost CubeSats and even small sats at this stage, and that I think should be leveraged. It seems to be working quite well with, for example, the Trailblazer mission that has been recently selected. And but some aspects of NE Scout, like the sail or the imager, they are very unique, and those are something that have a long, feed forward into future mission. And if you want the cost of the imager, Nancy, I can give you that afterwards.